to The Dealist, your insider's guide to navigating the complex world of M&A. My name is Catherine Ford, and today I will be talking to Austin Corbett, Managing Director of Accenture, and John Martin, Executive Vice President at SS&C Intralinks, about the future of AI in an M&A process. Here's our conversation. Austin and John, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today. I'm delighted to have you here. Before we get stuck into the content, a few words of introduction, please. Austin, can you tell our listeners how you fit into this conversation?
Sure. Catherine, John, hi. Austin Corbett. I lead Accenture's transaction advisory practice in North America, where I focus primarily on healthcare, life sciences, and digital and software deals in those sectors. I would say over the last 25 years or so, I've advised execs on maybe more than a couple hundred, 225 or so deals end to end, from large scale mergers to strategic tuck-ins, emphasizing innovation and talent retention. I've also led corp dev myself, so I understand firsthand the tough calls that deal makers and other executives have to make, and how critical the right mix of people, information, process tools, including AI, can be to making the right M&A calls. So, and today I'm also spearheading Accenture's AI agenda for M&A.
John, can you tell us a little bit about how you fit into the conversation?
Sure. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Austin. Good day to both of you. Happy to be here with you. I lead products and technology for Intralinks. We are, as probably many of you know, highly focused on bringing products to our users and customers in the banking advisory community, and bringing technology to advisors, clients as well. Maniacally focused on expediting the deal process, and certainly right now bringing AI to those solutions as well.
John, I'd like to stick with you, and I'd like to ask you to set the scene for us, talking about what are some of the early stage trends that we're seeing. So things that are emerging when it comes to the use of AI in an M&A process.
Sure. Yeah. So, my position in the deal ecosystem is we're bringing technology to deal makers, right? So we think a lot about how technology can positively impact that environment. And you mentioned trends. God, there's tens of trends that we could think of to talk about here. Maybe just pick a couple top 2 or 3 things that are frequently on our mind here at Intralinks. Is probably the most basic is just bringing automation to due diligence workflows. That's certainly what we're known for, is helping in the due diligence process. And that's very basic things like, basic document processing, to bringing AI to help with the diligence process, to be able to do things such as help bankers and their clients collect and organize documents faster and make sense of those documents using AI. Things in the deal prep process, simple things like redaction. I've got a mountain of documents that I need to redact PII from. We hear this all the time, and being able to use AI technology to surface personally identifiable information and help redact that. Another basic but really good example. And maybe a little more sophisticated beyond that is starting to identify risks that exist inside of the content, things we do manually today, but we can bring AI to that process, both on the sell side and the buy side of the technology. So that's one, is bringing automation to, I would say, due diligence workflows. Second, and probably the primary trend that we think about is just, there's this data synthesis at unprecedented scale that we can think about. During the diligence process, you're reviewing a lot. You're reviewing legal documents, financial documents, market information, maybe even social sentiment. AI brings a really unprecedented ability to synthesize that data at scale and gain insights that are just really hard to do for humans, even large teams of humans. So second one is that unprecedented data synthesis at scale. If I stretch a little more, an area we're exploring and we think progress is being made is into predictive deal modeling. So being able to, look at historical transactions, look at current market conditions, and predict deal success, or predict the optimal timing for a deal. Start to think about what the integration challenges might be for a given deal. So that's a third trend that we think about. Really, if I were to wrap all 3 of those up in a all-encompassing trend, it's just AI's ability to handle unstructured data, to help with what is sometimes an ambiguous decision-making process in deal making. It's not always about just the objective data. So the decision-making can be a little bit ambiguous. And, frankly, that's the complex work that is defined by M&A.
Okay, thank you very much. Austin, I'd like to bring you in and spend some time talking about the competitive edge. We know that in recent years, the speed at which an M&A team is able to do a deal has been really, really important and often been the sort of the angle that gives them a competitive edge. If you now bring in AI that allows lots of people to process huge amounts of data at a huge speed, where does that leave you when it comes to the competitive edge? Will that shift? Will speed still be something that's really, really important to get that deal over the edge? Or will other factors emerge and become much more important in giving that competitive edge to someone doing a transaction? Can you give us a little bit of insight from your perspective where you see things going?
Yeah, happy to. Here's what I know. Over the last year plus, GenAI and AI more broadly, as there are different forms now with agentic and other flavors of AI taking shape. It's moved beyond pilot projects with most strategic and private equity acquirers, right? To now, reinventing the entire, life cycle for M&A. And frankly, the value chain, if you're outside of an M&A context, it's automating and driving greater insights up and down the M&A stack. In today's deals, I find that AI is being applied across the entire M&A lifecycle. So strategy, sourcing, diligence, integration, separation, value tracking along the way. Every stage is being reshaped by next-gen technologies, many of them purpose-built for M&A. So adoption is accelerating by serial acquirers and other acquirers who are, just sort of thinking about their growing deal funnel. And our research happens to show that a growing majority of C-suite leaders, 64% or so, expect GenAI to revolutionize how deals are done. So nearly every large acquirer is already experimenting with advanced analytics and GenAI on top of that. But here's the gap. Again, research shows that about 7% of deal makers are applying GenAI across at least half of their deal stages. That's despite the fact that these leaders are 4 times more likely to consistently capture post-acquisition value. So there's a bit of underclubbing involved here when it comes to the ROI that GenAI can bring. The new source of competitive edge, it's not just speed, though GenAI is clearly redefining that, compressing, you mentioned diligence, compressing weeks of diligence into, days or even hours in certain cases, by automating and summarizing thousands of pages, extracting risk clauses, servicing targets in seconds. But it's now about orchestration. That's the real competitive edge. So winners aren't just using a single AI or GenAI tool. They're stitching together an ecosystem of large language models, AI co-pilots, sector-specific engines. And they're doing this with built-in responsible AI controls, clear governance, and upskilling of their deal teams. And that's where advisors can bring some differentiated value, not by picking a tool, but by helping deal makers choreograph their ecosystem that they're not necessarily married to yet or have gotten to know yet. So, for example, we're already helping clients flag stressed deal targets early, improving, PMI productivity and even boosting hit rate on competitive bids. And all of that's powered by GenAI.
And how much is that something where a company will build a bespoke solution for itself? I mean, how much is this something where there is a blueprint sort of tool out there that you can plug and play? And how much is that something where actually every corporate with its own corporate development strategy, with its own objective, with its own approach to an M&A transaction, because obviously those differ massively between, say, serial acquirers, whether they're corporate or private equity, and the one-off transaction. How much is this something where you need to build it yourself, and how much is it something where you can, as I say, plug and play?
Well, the more mature clients, the serial acquirers that are Fortune 500s and those, I know those best, but also the bulge bracket private equity funds as well. They have, many of them have invested heavily over the last couple of years, particularly in the last year, in-house AI teams, GenAI teams that are essentially skunkworks for designing tools. The challenge that they sometimes have, at least have had with clients that I've interacted with, is that there are so many use cases. There are so many ways that GenAI and these AI tools can be deployed for value that, the first thought that comes to mind is not how can I apply it to M&A? It's how can I apply it to my back office operations or my core supply chain, whatever, the case may be, for additional productivity enhancement, you might say. So M&A tends to be on the list, but not necessarily at the top of the list for applications. There are tools out there that, do, and many of these are well known to acquirers, but that do excellent, target identification and screening. We have our own tool for diligence. There are others that sort of facilitate this workflow, automate this workflow, and slice time to value in terms of the execution of the M&A process. But there's no one size fits all. And so when you combine, I guess, to say it another way, if you combine the fact that you've got some internal talent and resources, but not aimed at M&A, and then a panoply or a portfolio of technology assets out there that all sort of do similar but somewhat different things up and down the M&A lifecycle, you tend to need somebody to knit it all together into a coherent solution that, if I were, the head of corporate strategy or corporate development for an acquirer, I could see how there's a clear, consistent, synthesized handoff from stage to stage.
Okay. Thank you very much. John, I'm going to ask you, based on the conversation that we've had now, to take a leap forward. 5 to 10 years would be sort of my sweet spot here. Tell us, how will AI be used in transactions in 5 to 10 years?
Sure.
Or how do you feel? I guess, this is like the crystal ball question, isn't it? But from your experience, from what you're seeing at the moment, from where technology is and where it can be in 5 to 10 years, what do you expect the impact to be?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years is a really long time, especially with the speed at which things are changing right now. So I'm going to...
Are we going to be working then? I think we might be getting universal basic income and being replaced by robots at that point.
Maybe. I'm going to shorten the question to be a couple of years because things are moving so fast. But and Austin touched on it, Catherine. We see that every phase of the deal life cycle will be affected. And if you just kind of call out a couple of examples, like deal origination, I think will become much more proactive. We kind of see trends of that happening already, where we're continuously scanning markets and identifying targets based on strategic fit that is much more dynamic and much more continuous, and proactive is the word that comes to mind. For us, at Intralinks, we obviously, the core of our universe is diligence. So we think a lot about how will diligence be done. And, if you think back, I always like to think back to think ahead. Diligence platforms have been historically focused on sharing and security. I think if you did a, word association, those are the words people would come up with. And we're evolving now to be these much more intelligent platforms that help with the decision-making process rather than just sharing content and doing it in a very secure manner. So that's happening. That's not 5 to 10 years or 2 years away. That's happening now. And I think you'll just see more and more. And we'll probably talk about that as we discuss Agentic AI and things like that. If you kind of follow the deal life cycle from there, I think valuations will change. Valuations can be, some folks might take offense to this, but can be a little artistic and less scientific today in some cases, right? And I think we'll see more continuously updated valuation models. If you can, again, compare and contrast, you might go for a fairness opinion today on a valuation that might be a very static in point in time. And I think where we are now and where we're headed, we'll have much more dynamic valuation models that can be updated in real time. So that's a trend we see happening. That's something we see for the future. And now let's keep following the deal life cycle. So we've identified targets, we've done diligence, we've done valuation. So let's think about negotiation and closing. Negotiation will start to bring prior behavior on negotiations, and how did people behave in the past, and how did counterparties behave to predict how they might behave on this current deal. Those are things that are available now or within reach. And likewise on integration planning. Integration planning tends to be, I don't think this is always true, but tends to be something that happens at the end. think we can pull a lot of that upstream and start to identify risks, start the integration planning much sooner. So as we think, we Intralinks, our core strength is diligence, but as we start to broaden and look at the deal lifecycle and the platform that we're building now, we think about all these phases and how AI will impact.
Now, with all this talk of technology, I think it's very easy to forget that at the heart of any M&A transaction are still the humans. And as an M&A reporter, I always one of the sort of key mantras is keep in mind who the personalities are, because there are lots of deals that never get done because the personalities don't connect, and lots of deals that possibly shouldn't have been done, they do happen because personalities have connected. So my question in the next step is, well, what does all this technology mean for the people involved in the transaction? Austin, could I maybe ask you to give us a bit of insight into how you think the skill set will change? What will individual roles within an M&A process look like? What kind of additional capabilities must, whether it's the corporate development team in a corporate or the advisors, bring to the table to still stay relevant when so much technology is being used in a transaction?
So over the next, I guess 5+ years, I think that, as you're hinting, right, the biggest deal shift won't just be, the rise of AI. It'll be the transformation of the deal team itself using those tools. We're already advising some of our clients on how to invest in upskilling, not just how to use the GenAI tools, but how to lead with them. So in this case, right, it's because AI is no longer optional. It's quickly becoming the core expectation inside deal teams. So in fact, in our analysis, 82% of execs tell us that AI and advanced analytics have already accelerated their pre-deal insights. We're seeing GenAI embedded directly into the tools, into the tools that the teams already use. So email, VDRs, financial models, the CRM stacks that they're using. And that kind of embedded intelligence is really becoming the norm. The pace is picking up. The deal pace has always been extremely fast. It's just getting faster. So GenAI adoption across deal stages in our case, when it comes to the use of these tools, has grown from 24 to 30% in just a year. But still there's room to grow, right? As that number indicates. So for example, more than half of execs are using GenAI for due diligence, but only 14 are using it for integration or separation planning. And I think that's a missed opportunity, or put it this way, it's an opportunity that's going to be explored very quickly, I think, by your more creative and advanced deal-making teams. Same story with research on sort of upfront M&A strategy work. So 79% or so of these M&A executives and their CXO counterparts do expect GenAI to deliver high value in industry and company research, but only 31% are really, really investing in it right now. So what's next? I'd say that, M&A is shifting from episodic work with AI to always on, with AI agents continuously monitoring markets, sourcing targets, screening them, and modeling valuations, even to tee up the initial outreach autonomously. And during negotiation, John touched on negotiation. The LLMs are starting to simulate deal scenarios in real time, testing earnouts, capital structures, and IRR impacts, even before the other side finishes their sentence. So what does this mean for a corp dev team or a corp dev professional? The premium skill set is shifting. So it's no longer just about the financial modeling, your Excel mastery and sourcing relationships. It's about orchestrating these agents. It's about validating the outputs, shaping the strategy, and ensuring that the responsible AI is built into every step, so that you're not just a complete dummy as the tool does the work for you. So that's what I think is going to define the next generation of top tier deal makers.
Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll spend some time talking about Agentic AI.
Intralinks DealCentre AI. AI you can rely on, with the security you expect to propel every transaction. Transform your deal making with DealCentre AI. Intralinks. Go forward.
John, could I ask you to talk a little bit about agentic AI and how it is changing workflow?
Yeah, sure. I think agentic AI is super interesting in the M&A space, and it'll represent the evolution of AI as kind of a tool that we use on the side to really thinking of AI as being like a team member, really, an autonomous team member. In fact, you see vendors, we look a lot at other vendors in the space, and they'll name their AI agent, give it a name like it is part of the team. So you see that mindset there already. What makes it different? Like fundamentally, what makes it different, in my view, is we'll go from some of these administrative tasks that we're doing today to really, so instead of saying like, hey, I want to go analyze this contract and spending a lot of time reading a certain document and drawing reference to other documents that it references, just asking the question you want answered, which is like, I want to assess regulatory risk on this asset that's for sale. So you'll be able to up-level the conversation quite a bit. We spend a lot of time thinking about how do we make that easy for our users and our customers. You talk about barriers. I don't think the biggest barrier there is technology. Even at this point, the biggest barrier there is trust. It's trust and change management of how we've done things in the past. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how can we deliver that where we're surfacing information, again, back to the unprecedented, sort of scale comment, where we surface information and keep the human in the loop. So we're surfacing information to a human who's ultimately responsible for making that decision, but we're presenting information that they may not have had at their fingertips in the past. So speaking maybe from a technology perspective or a technology provider perspective, we're going to evolve and get rid of some of the more administrative tasks that are done today. Instead of analyzing a document, I'm really looking to understand regulatory risk is a good example. And then when AI has a view of that, being able to surface that to a user to sit human in the loop and be able to make a decision.
Many M&A transactions fail to live up to the expectations that we have. We never realize the synergies that were promised. It never really delivers on all those promises that were made in those infamous press releases. My question is, if AI has the potential to, on the one hand, speed up a diligence process, to cover more data, how could that money be possibly deployed? John, maybe I can come to you first of all on that one.
Sure. I think that's maybe this combination of many things we've talked about here today. AI will enable us to bring more data to the decision-making process. We'll be able to surface insights that, sort of human alone has a very difficult time doing today, and doing that with a smaller team. I think we'll be able to be more proactive across all phases of the deal lifecycle, where we're making better decisions upstream that are influencing later decisions as well. So those things, in my mind, come together to deliver better outcomes in the deal making process.
Austin, can I bring you in and maybe help or ask you to talk a little bit about how AI could help drive value and protect some of the resources in a transaction?
Yeah, let me follow up on what John was bringing up. So again, I think the real shift isn't about, cutting costs on due diligence. It's about how execs and the teams that are doing deals, redeploy the saved time and the capital that they do set aside. So right now, more than half of the executives we speak with already invest in GenAI for diligence, with Intralinks and perhaps other complementary tools like ours. But the bigger story, in my opinion, is that advanced AI reduces wasted effort on deals that won't close. This can free teams up to use the resources in smarter, more strategic ways. So instead of, spending weeks and lots of money chasing deals that ultimately don't happen, teams can redirect that energy into better analysis, stronger value creation plans, deeper or more, fast forwarded, PMI, planning. So, of course, the impact depends a bit on the industry and the scale of the deals and the deal flow, but especially in high volume, M&A, where there are a lot of serial acquirers, high volume sectors, AI-driven diligence becomes a critical guardrail, quickly identifying the red flags and helping executives confidently deploy capital into the right deals. But the bottom line is that AI doesn't just save money. It helps, or time. It helps companies use the capital smarter, protect their resources, and dramatically improve, the odds of capturing the full value. So I just think that it creates optionality that can be really, really well deployed in a strategic and competitive deal environment.
Great. John and Austin, thank you so much for sharing all your insights into this really exciting topic. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you both to tell me and our listeners a little about what you're most excited when you think about AI and its use in M&A. Looking ahead, what are the things that really make you really excited about what we might see in the future? John, maybe I could have you first for that one.
Sure. Well, you can't be in the technology space and not be excited about the possibilities of AI. This is like a, once in a career technology evolution that's available to us now. So that's super exciting. The net effect of that is, our users are oftentimes junior bankers. We have the ability to bring the playing field up for all of our users and let them operate at a much higher level. That's exciting for us in what we do in our Intralinks business. If you kind of follow that along, the outcome is, I don't think it'll be only the team with the largest budget who can do the best deals. It'll be the most strategic team who's using AI effectively. And I think we'll see value creation unlock there that we just don't see today. So those things all come together to just be a super exciting time here.
Great. Thank you very much. Austin, your thoughts, please.
Well, Kev and John, what excites me most is that, I think you kind of touched on it, we're really just scratching the surface of what AI can do for deal makers. Today, just about every executive I speak with says GenAI is revolutionizing their deal process. It's really revolutionizing their whole business, but their deal process as well. But only a small percentage of them truly have it embedded meaningfully along the life cycle. Certainly not many have it end to end. So there's so much opportunity ahead for those who sort of see the application of these tools, realize where they can be deployed in their deal life cycle, and then string them together in a coherent way. So, we're starting, my company, we're already seeing this potential with tools like, our Deal Navigator tool, which is interactive. It's GenAI, it's powered, it's trained on decades of M&A insights. We have other tools as well that sort of drive the process end to end. But looking ahead, again, what's truly exciting is Agentic AI and the application of Agentic AI. AI that acts autonomously, breaks down complicated deal challenges, continuously learns, and genuinely collaborates with the human deal team. So, imagine an AI teammate that proactively anticipates deal risks, helps you identify synergies that are hidden, or evolve alongside your strategy in real time. So if you want to know where that horizon is heading, and I think faster than we may appreciate, is, I think a digital twin for M&A. So full virtual replica of a deal process synced, to live data or close to live data as you can get, able to simulate and optimize everything from deal timing to integration design. So you can imagine, a corp dev lead, working with a co-pilot throughout the process, throughout a deal life cycle, interacting with it about, questions about, how's the culture fit of these two teams coming together? Is there a cybersecurity risk and diligence that I hadn't thought of? And with actual data, not just a broad sweeping, set of checklists, you can pinpoint opportunities or risks to sort of make sure that the deal that you're hoping to achieve, realizes its potential and doesn't blow up in your face. So that's where I think we're headed. It promises to transform how we capture value in M&A for a long, long time.
So exciting times indeed. That's all for today's episode of The Dealist. I'd like to thank my guests for sharing their time and their experience and their insights. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. If you enjoyed this episode of The Dealist, please like, follow, subscribe, and comment. We'd really, really like to hear from you. Until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.